You believe you are merely describing what you see, but in truth, you are shaping what will come next. Every word, every thought, every silent judgment is more than a reflection of reality. It is a vibrational command that directs the quantum field. The inner voice that follows you through your days is not neutral. It is a creative technology, a silent broadcaster of signals that, repeated over time, become matter, events, patterns. As Neville Goddard said, "What you accept as true in your mind, you will live in your experience." And most of the time, we accept without realizing it. That voice doesn't shout, it whispers. And because it's subtle, it goes unnoticed. But it is precisely this unconscious habit of narrating reality through the past that perpetuates what you long to transform. Because the field does not respond to what you desire, it responds to what you continue affirming to be real. Bruce Lipton reminds us that repeated beliefs shape biology. And when that repetition takes the form of inner language, "I can't, nothing works out, this always happens to me," we are literally sculpting reality in our tissues and in the field around us. That is why the invitation of this video is simple yet profound: to observe the voice that observes, to update the inner narrator, and to understand that as you change the way you describe the world begins to change around you. Because what you say reinforces what you see, and even more, creates what you will live. From a very early age, a voice began to accompany your every step. It has no sound, yet it echoes within. It has no face, yet it influences everything you see. This inner voice, which seems to merely narrate facts, is in truth constantly broadcasting signals that affect your vibration and consequently your reality. It comments when you fail, when you succeed, when you are alone, or when you are surrounded by others. It analyzes, compares, judges, and labels, as if trying to protect you. But over time, that protection turns into limitation. Because the more it repeats the same patterns, the more you see yourself trapped within them. This voice learned from what it heard from your parents, from school, from the culture around you. It carries stories that did not begin with you, yet continue to replay in your mind as absolute truths. It says, "You are like this, that's not for you, the world is hard." And every phrase is a mold that imprisons your creative power. The problem is that because it feels so familiar, you believe it is you, but it isn't. This voice is a program, not the consciousness that hears it. You are not the content of the mind, you are the one who can observe, choose, and rewrite that content. And that is the key to transforming reality, realizing that the observer can be reprogrammed. When you begin to pay attention to the voice that never stops, not to judge it, but to listen with presence, something shifts. You are no longer at the mercy of what it says. You begin to respond, to redirect, to choose a new vibration. And that choice, made in silence, is the beginning of a new timeline. Quantum physics brought us a discovery as revolutionary as it is subtle. The simple act of observing alters the reality observed. This principle, called the observer effect, reveals that you are not merely a passive spectator of life. You actively participate in the creation of what you see. The quantum field is a sea of infinite possibilities. Nothing is fixed until consciousness interacts with it. When you direct attention to something, an emotion, a thought, a judgment, that attention collapses the wave and gives form to a specific reality. To observe is to choose, even unconsciously, and that choice happens all the time. When you say, "This situation never changes," or "This is hard for me," you are collapsing broader possibilities and reinforcing the reality you already know. Life then repeats itself, not out of bad luck, but out of loyalty to the way you are observing. On the other hand, when you observe with awareness and intention, you create space for the new. To observe with love, with curiosity, with openness, is like opening windows to higher frequencies. It is ceasing to collapse fear and beginning to collapse potential. You become the conductor who chooses what takes form out of the invisible. You are not here merely to describe what happens. You are here to co-create with the field. And it all begins with this realization: where is my attention? Am I feeding the old or revealing the new? The consciousness that observes is the same that shapes. By changing the way you look, you change what exists to be seen. Most people live trapped in a vibrational cycle they don't even realize exists. They wake up, look around at reality, bills, pain, limitations, and, without noticing, reaffirm it all through thoughts and words. This continuous act of automatic narration is what keeps reality frozen in the same place. The cycle is subtle but powerful. You observe what already exists, comment based on old patterns, and that commentary reinforces what's being observed. It's a silent loop. See, judge, declare, reinforce. And while this sequence goes uninterrupted, the new has no space to emerge. Many believe they're simply describing what they're living, but in truth, they're perpetuating reality through the power of the word. Saying "I never succeed" or "things are hard for me" isn't just venting, it's vibrational programming. The quantum field interprets it as a command, not as a complaint. This invisible cycle works like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The conditioned mind looks for evidence of what it already believes, and when it finds those proofs, which it helped shape itself, it feels validated. That deepens the dominant frequency even more and shuts the doors to the unexpected. Breaking the cycle doesn't require huge effort, but presence. To notice the exact moment when you're about to repeat an old narrative and choose a new way of observing. The simple act of pausing, breathing, and rewriting the inner voice can disrupt years of vibrational repetition. The words you speak to yourself, even if no one hears them, carry creative power. They are like coded instructions that the quantum field receives to organize the next scenarios of your life. When you affirm something, it doesn't matter if it's true in the physical plane. The field understands it as vibrational intention. Phrases like "this always happens to me," "I never get lucky," or "I'm not good enough" may sound like mere venting, but they're programming in real time the unfolding of your existence. The field doesn't distinguish irony from belief. It responds to the emotional frequency behind the words. Each recurring thought becomes a synaptic pathway. Each word repeated with emotion becomes a vibrational signature. That's why observing what you usually say to yourself mentally is one of the deepest practices of reality reprogramming. You're shaping the invisible with every inner phrase. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying pain, but about interrupting the automatic pattern that turns temporary feelings into permanent identity. Suffering doesn't need to be denied, but it doesn't have to be decreed as destiny through words that perpetuate what hurts. What you repeat about yourself grows roots in the subconscious. And as Bruce Lipton reminds us, the subconscious controls about 95% of your life. Changing the inner voice isn't superficial, it's accessing the very matrix of creation. Your inner words are the keyboard with which you type your next reality. The voice that narrates your life wasn't born with you. It was shaped by your family's beliefs, childhood experiences, social repetition, and emotional traumas you carried without realizing. This voice, that often feels like you, is actually a program installed over the years. The bias of conditioning makes you interpret reality through old filters. Even when faced with new possibilities, your voice may still be saying, "This is dangerous. This won't work for me. I'm not capable." And since the field responds to what you vibrate, it confirms this limited version of yourself. That conditioned voice isn't your essence. It's just software running in the background. And like any system, it can be updated. But for that, it must be recognized. The first step is realizing you are not what you think. You are the one who observes the thoughts. The good news is that neuroplasticity allows you to create new pathways, new patterns, and a new voice. When you begin replacing automatic judgments with neutral observations, inner criticism with self-compassion, the field responds by reorganizing your reality around this new vibrational signature. It's not about changing who you are, but about returning to your natural frequency, which was buried under layers of fear, doubt, and repetition. The quantum field responds to your most authentic state, and that state begins to emerge when you uninstall the filters of conditioning and allow your true voice to speak. You don't need to destroy your life in order to transform it. You only need to change the frequency through which you are transmitting it. When your inner voice stops repeating scarcity, fear, or unworthiness and begins to vibrate gratitude, possibility, and trust, the field around you immediately begins to reorganize. This change is not a performance, nor an exaggerated effort. It is a conscious choice to observe differently. When you observe with more openness, curiosity, and presence, you emit more coherent signals to the quantum field. And the field, obedient, begins to return experiences that vibrate in this new frequency. The secret lies in the micro choices. You can transform the automatic narration of "this is going to go wrong" into "let's see what can be born from this." You can replace "I always fail" with "I am learning something new with every step." It is not about denying pain, but about ceasing to perpetuate suffering through vibrational repetition. This transition requires gentleness. The old frequency may try to reaffirm itself, seeking proof in the external world that nothing has changed. But when you remain firm in the new way of observing, even if the external still seems the same, you are already vibrating from another place, and the collapse of the new reality is only a matter of time. Remember, it is not the world that changes first, so you can change within. It is you who changes within, and the world responds. Your inner voice is the button that switches the station. And when the station changes, everything that reaches you begins to sound different. Transforming your reality begins with the simple act of observing yourself. Not critically, but curiously. When you catch yourself reacting with anxiety, impatience, or judgment, that is the invitation to return to the awareness of the observer. The question is not "why am I like this?" but "how am I observing what is happening right now?" This practice requires presence. Many times the inner voice operates on autopilot. It comments before you even notice. But by bringing light to this voice, by pausing and listening to what is being narrated, you reclaim your creative power. It is in that space between automatic reaction and conscious response that change begins. A simple yet powerful exercise is to ask yourself in any situation, how is my voice narrating this right now? Is there a higher or more compassionate way of observing this reality? These questions do not seek perfect answers, but they open space for higher frequencies to enter. Over time, you begin to notice recurring patterns in your observer's voice. Perhaps it always expects the worst, minimizes your achievements, or anticipates rejection. In recognizing these patterns, you don't need to fight them, only offer new ways of seeing, like updating the software without deleting the system. The practice of conscious observation does not only change your thoughts, it shifts your baseline vibration, which directly affects what the quantum field can collapse as reality. This is how you move from being a victim of the storyline to the vibrational author of your own narrative. Language is not merely a tool for communication, it is an instrument of creation. Every word you choose activates circuits in the brain, emits frequencies into the field, and shapes possibilities in the universe around you. To speak is to vibrate, and to vibrate is to create. Many people think that manifesting is about repeating positive phrases tirelessly, but empty words without vibrational coherence do not generate real transformation. The universe does not respond to the volume of words, but to the intention and energy behind them. The language that creates is not the one that shouts, but the one that vibrates in truth. Describing reality with consciousness does not mean denying what is happening. It means naming with presence, without imprisoning yourself in what is. Instead of saying everything is going wrong, you can affirm with integrity, I am going through a process of reorganization. The truth is still spoken, but from a place that opens space for healing and for the new. Every time you alter the way you narrate your own life, you also change the frequency you emit. And this is not only symbolic, it is neurochemical. The brain responds to language with the release of substances. The way you describe your day, your body, your path, is literally altering your biology. Using language as creative technology is to recognize that speaking is a sacred act, that every word is a vibrational decree that sends commands to the field. When you speak with presence, intention, and alignment, your voice ceases to be unconscious repetition and becomes a channel of conscious creation. What you observe within yourself does not end within you. Every thought, every emotion, every word subtly feeds into the collective field of humanity. We live immersed in a shared consciousness, and everything we vibrate returns as part of the whole. There is no personal transformation that does not touch the world. The voice of your inner observer, once awakened, not only reprograms your reality, it opens cracks in the reality of those who cross your path. A coherent, centered, and awakened being naturally elevates the frequency of the environments they walk through. Your simple presence modifies atmospheres. Your conscious silence communicates more than 1,000 speeches. When you choose to observe with love instead of judgment, with hope instead of cynicism, you emit signals that other bodies perceive, even unconsciously. This is the true quantum contagion, awakening that spreads without imposition, without preaching, simply through vibrational resonance. That is why the path of self-knowledge is not selfish, quite the opposite. It is the deepest contribution you can offer the world. When you update your way of perceiving, you allow others to perceive differently as well. You break patterns that may have stretched across generations. In the end, what you transform within yourself becomes a bridge for collective transformation. You become more than someone who observes their own life with awareness. You become part of a new planetary consciousness that manifests through every choice, every word, every attentive gaze. For a long time, you believed that the voice inside you was just an echo of reality, a passive narrator merely describing what happened. But now you begin to realize this voice doesn't just describe, it dictates the next scene. It is a subtle vibrational command, shaping the invisible flow of existence. By becoming aware of this voice, you take the first step toward transforming it. You realize that you are not a prisoner of the script it repeats. You are the conductor who can change the melody, rewrite the emotional chords, choose new arrangements of perception. The observer becomes the composer of their own timeline. This does not mean denying what is happening or running from pain. It means embracing reality without losing sovereignty over how it will be interpreted and lived. The conductor does not change the score by erasing notes. They transform it with intention, rhythm, and awareness. And that is what you are learning to do. When you choose to observe with clarity, with vibrational responsibility, your inner voice ceases to be a prison and becomes a bridge. You begin to speak with the field, and the field responds. You start to realize that every time you change the way you observe, you also change what unfolds around you. At this point, life is no longer something you merely watch. It is something you conduct with wisdom. You are not just someone passing through circumstances. You are the one who, by observing with presence, guides the flow from the invisible to the visible. You are the conductor of the now, and it is here that reality shifts. What you say reinforces what you see. But there is a deeper layer. What you observe silently molds what you are about to live. Your reality is not built on grand, isolated decisions, but on the daily micro-observations you make of yourself, of others, and of the world around you. That inner voice that once seemed to merely narrate now reveals itself as an architect. Every judgment you repeat, every label you sustain, every hasty conclusion you validate are vibrational bricks that build future experience. And when you understand this, you no longer want to repeat the past. You want to create something new. You can choose a new narrative. You can teach your inner voice to be an ally, not a judge. You can train it to find possibilities where you once saw limitations, to observe with compassion where you once held criticism, to describe the present with faith in what is emerging rather than attachment to what has already passed. And this is not about ignoring reality, but expanding it, recognizing that you are not confined to a single version of truth, and that your conscious gaze can open windows where once there were walls. You are not the story you inherited. You are the consciousness that can choose how to tell it. So, if you are ready for this silent and powerful turning point, declare now to yourself and to the field, I choose to update my observer's voice. This phrase is not just an intention, it is a new starting point, because when the voice changes, reality changes with it.